It's Matt Andren's brainchild. Matt has always been interested in STOL-capable aircraft.
Matt Andren, Mr. Foam, as we know around the office. I remember having that sign made up for his cubicle, and that sums him up. It should be Mr. Aviation, really. The guy is just like a walking encyclopedia of everything that flies.
Well, I've always been into high lift devices, flaps, slats, vortex generators, all kinds of stuff like that. It's just been something I've kind of get on a tangent of and just kind of like learning about and trying to see what you can do to make an airplane fly slower or different, using these aerodynamic things.
He likes that overall plan form that lends itself well to that, and I think what he did is took a combination of full-scale models that are good at STOL flying, and then he took some of what he's learned being a modeler pretty much his whole life, and he put the two together into a design that was optimized to not only be STOL capable, but also fly well all around, and then also be a really good flying RC model.
I would say probably the original genesis for the Timber was an Apprentice I actually modified many years ago.
So we had tons of experience and tons of fun with the Apprentice. And then guys in our office said, let's experiment. Let's put the big tires on the front. And so a couple guys here, Matt and David, decided, years ago, let's just try to do this and see what we get.
I made it a tail dragger, put giant wheels on it, cut some really huge flaps into it, actually had the ailerons droop with the flaps, and it was definitely a different airplane than an Apprentice.
We all in product development, when you develop a product, sometimes when you're in the middle of developing the product, you're like, okay, this thing's gonna be bigger than what we even thought, as far as how it would fly, and without even giving too much information, handing the transmitter to another guy, just waiting to see the response. And everybody was like, okay, this is cooler than I even thought it was going to be.
When he first said he was going to make a STOL airplane, I was like, cool, it's going to be a Highlander, it's going to be a Kit Fox, and he's like, no, I'm going to make my own. I was like, why would you do that? There's so many good ones out there. And he came up with the Timber, and it's like the best bits of all of them. I looked at it, I was like, oh, cool, it's got the pretty cowling of, say, like a Kit Fox and the Euro Fox. It's got the long length of some of the more sleek European glass ships, but it's got the functionality of the Highlanders and the brutally ugly STOL airplanes.
And it kind of looks like a real model at the same time, which I appreciate, because a lot of people, when they see it, uneducated people, they assume it is a real airplane.
Well, the benefit about that is, at least on the model side of it, is you can kind of do anything you want. You're not limited trying to make it look like a Super Cub or a Husky or a Highlander STOL airplane or anything like that. You can actually change the airplane to make it a good model. We added a longer wing, made sure we had good aileron authority, big flaps. You can make the tail volumes the size you want, and not be limited by trying to make it look like something that's already out there. So it gave us a lot of free will to just make it what we wanted, make it perform the way we wanted without, again, having to try and match something and make it look like something.
It looks like a real airplane. It's not a scale airplane. It was cheated to be a better RC airplane, but it still looks like a real airplane. I would say it's probably a four-seater. I doubt it would be that narrow of a fuselage if it was. It's probably a tandem two-seater.
Two, it's gotta be two. Anything else is dead weight. This is a STOL airplane, this is not a cruiser. You don't take passengers. It should be one. I'd love to see a single seat. One-seater would be my ideal, my dream Timber. If I built a Timber in real life, it would be a single seat.
Well, originally, the working name was just like a STOL airplane. Before we came up with a name for it, if anybody's aware of the competition, the STOL competition in Valdez, Alaska, we were actually going to name the airplane the Valdez because it made sense with the type of airplane it is. However, after kind of having that idea run around the office and everything, not everybody was on board with that name. So we tried to do kind of a brainstorming session.
But the point was, this thing is all about the outdoors and where you could fly when you think about the tundra of Alaska, or a bush plane type thing.
Most of these STOL planes are flying up in Alaska, going in and out of tiny airstrips in the middle of the woods, so Timber kind of made sense, and it really fits the airplane. It really just kind of hit a home run. Everybody who got one loved the way it flew. They could fly it in smaller areas with the big tires. They could fly it on their field if they didn't have a perfect environment to fly off of, not a paved runway or anything like that. Plus, it just allowed you to try and fly in out of places you wouldn't before and off rougher surfaces. So based on the popularity of that, we thought, well, what would be better than a smaller version, and did the Ultra Micro. And that one really even opens it up that much more. I mean, like in the product video, you know, we're landing it underneath trees and stuff like that.
And we needed bigger ailerons, so we had better aileron authority. We put bigger flaps on it, so it would have better authority. And then I think we cheated the wing area a little bit more to make it, even though an ultra micro, make it a little bit floatier still in its category. And in the end, I think we probably created the best ultra micro ever. We actually were joking one day that there's no way the Timber scaled down to an ultra micro would fly as well as the big one does. But we were all very pleasantly surprised when we did that.
Everybody who had a large one had to get the small one too. I mean, it's just when you enjoy something so much, you're like, oh, that's cute, but I know how it's gonna fly based on the cool one that I have, the larger one, so I've got to get that. Secondarily, for the guy that said, you know what, I want to fly something in my cul-de-sac or a smaller park where I don't have to go to the flying field or wherever, where I can come home from work, have batteries charged, and hey, the flag's down, it's not quite dark yet, I just got to go 2 blocks. I'm going to fly this thing. You know, I can fly it in a lot of different areas and I can't fly the big one, but knowing the features of the larger one, we knew this one was going to be big.
So that one was really neat because it took basically the capabilities of the big Timber in a much smaller package that you could fly in your backyard. So if you didn't have access to a flying field, you could fly the Ultra Micro pretty much anywhere. One of the things that a number of guys around the office wanted was basically more aerobatic capability out of the Timber.
We all felt like it needed more aerobatic performance. It needed more power. Well, I take that back. It didn't need any of that. We wanted it to have more aerobatic performance. We wanted it to have more power.
And that was the genesis of the Timber X. We shortened the wing considerably, added a lot more chord, and made the control surfaces just gigantic on it. You lose a little bit of the STOL capability, but because it's more of a 3D, you can almost Harrier it in and stuff. So you're not really losing STOL ability, you're just flying more on the power than you would with the high lift devices of the original Timber. And being that it has the giant control surfaces, it can do things that the original one could never do.
So the overall wing area of the Timber X is almost the same as the original Timber. It's just shorter and deeper. And then the benefit of that is we were able to put very, very large, deep surfaces on it. And so it has incredible roll performance. The flaps are very effective. You can do things with that you can't do with a regular Timber or a Timber 1.5 meter. The Timber X was very special to me because we took a STOL airplane and turned it into a 3D airplane. STOL performance of the original plus 3D capability. And so it just seemed like an all-around win-win. And that is probably when I fell in love completely with the Timber.
It's possibly a great example of lazy PDing. I was sitting there in the office one day thinking about future projects, and I looked across at Matt and he was working on it would have been the turbo Timber at the time. And I was like, we're doing another Timber? And he's like, yeah, have you seen the sales numbers? And I was like, oh, interesting. So yeah, I took the path of least resistance and pitched the idea of making a giant Timber. And it was originally going to be called the Timber XL, that's the X on the fin. And we changed that later on. But yeah, it was just to make a wood ARF version of the already very popular Timber. God, I keep using this word, it sounds like I'm on repeat, but versatility. My favorite thing about the plane. I can go and decide one day I'm going to fly it around like a cub and just do one wheel touch and goes. In the same flight, I can suddenly decide, you know what, I want to do a point-to-point slow roll, but try and keep it as actual as I would one of my aerobatic planes or my jets. It does it. Maybe I want to do some rolling Harriers. This isn't a 3D plane, but it does it. Maybe I want to do some really high alpha knife edge stuff, or some prop hanging, or some waterfalls, or some flips. And then suddenly go back to just putting it around with takeoff flapping and flying it like my dad. That's what I love about the 110.
I've always been a fan of turboprops as well. I just kind of like the shape of the nose and stuff like that, King Air nacelles and stuff, just something with that big intake on the bottom, that sleek look. And so I wanted to change the original Timber to kind of give it that turboprop mentality, if it was a full-size airplane, somebody lobbed off the nose and put a PT6 turboprop on it kind of thing.
And the one thing we found when we put more power into it was that the original Timber 1.5 meter wing twisted. So when we were coming up with the turbo Timber, we thought, no big deal, we'll just take the original Timber, put a longer nose on it that looks like a turboprop, we'll put a bigger motor in there, higher KV motor, make it work on 4S, it'll be great. As soon as we did that, it actually rolled worse than the original because the wing was twisting too much. So we had to come up with a way to reuse the existing wing design. changed the internal structure a little bit because we couldn't make an all-new designed airplane. And then on top of that, the engineers and our PD guys came up with an incredible solution to keep the wing stiff without adding a ton of weight, without having to change the design and retool it, which would have increased the cost and made it take longer to get to market. They came up with kind of a skin. So the entire top and bottom of the Turbo Timber wing is covered with effectively a large decal. And that decal, I was blown away when I saw how stiff it was without it versus with it, and that made all the difference in the world. And so that was probably the #1 design challenge that I can remember for the current Timber series, was getting that done.
We did go to 3 and 4S capability, so we got a lot more performance, and so we had to stiffen up the wing a little bit because it was flying much faster than it had originally ever been designed to. And I think that the Turbo Timber actually has probably more performance than the original because it has that wider flight envelope.
It's aerobatic in a way that the original never could have been, and that makes it more entertaining for a 3D aerobatic pilot or recovering 3D aerobatic pilot like I am.
So then we have, we're coming up with the next iteration basically, which is the Ultra Micro Turbo Timber. Kind of the same thing we did to the larger Timber, but a little bit different. It's still only 2S, but we tweaked the motor to give a little bit more power, gave it the cool turboprop nose, changed up the trim scheme a little bit. So still a great flying Ultra Micro, just a little bit different look, but anybody who has the original Ultra Micro will love this one as well.
My favorite now is the new UMX Turbo Timber. I think it's fantastic. It's everything that the original Timber was, but now more power. And so you simply can't beat that. I don't care if the guy's an experienced pilot, if he doesn't like ultra micros, he doesn't think a Timber's for him. Every single person that's ever flown that or seen that fly, the original UMX Timber and now the Turbo Timber, they're blown away. They're like, I had no idea it could do that. It can hover, it can knife edge, it can do inverted, snaps, and at the same time you can take off and land in places that you would never do with any other ultra micro. And that's really kind of the benefit, I think, of the entire Timber line. That's why the whole thing makes sense. In every category it's in, every class that they're in, all the way from the ultra micro up to the giant scale, in each of those sizes and categories, they are the best STOL performance aircraft of their kind.
Going on from that one, our next Timber release is actually the Night Timber X. Night flying is fairly popular. You know, we had the Night Visionaire, we had the Night Brave. Those airplanes have done really well for us. And it just gives another option for the airplane, you know, something else you can do with it. And that one being having a hollow wing and a hollow fuselage, you can really illuminate it quite well and, you know, make it show up at night. So the great thing about working at Horizon is when we develop an airplane, everybody gets out there and has their hand in it. From David Payne and Sean Sullivan, all those guys, we were out there flying it, testing it, getting feedback from everybody so we can make improvements that made it a great product. You know, sometimes you can't see some of the things, you're so close to the project, you're out there flying it like, this is great, and you let somebody else fly and go, well, why don't you change this, or why don't we do this, or hey, this would be really cool if we could make this happen on this airplane. And it just gives you more options to make it, a great product at the end. You know, when you have all that feedback from, I mean, we all come from such different backgrounds and have different experiences in this hobby, and can take every little bit of that from each person and put it into one airplane, which really makes it something special.
Timber is probably special to me just because it became bigger than what we thought would be from the PD standpoint. Anytime you've got a product that you know you believe in strongly, you know, maybe the rest of the company doesn't quite know this, and that's okay. They don't quite understand exactly what we're trying to get to. But when it becomes even a bigger hit than what you thought it could be, and all the work that a whole team has put in, that really makes you appreciative and thankful, and it makes you feel good about it, knowing that there's so many of these at every event we go to that everybody kind of has that same smile on their face when they fly it as we did. And anytime you can have that result with the product you developed, you feel like you've hit the mark.
It meets almost everybody's needs in some way now. And on top of that, it is a plane that almost everyone can fly and enjoy.
I think the reason why it's been so successful, it's not lucky, you know, it's not the fact that we just stumbled upon a new segment and went down this avenue. STOL's been around for a while, and other companies have done STOL aeroplanes. The Timber, I think, as I said in the initial brief, Matt took the best bits of all of the different aeroplanes and made them into the best STOL aeroplane. So yeah, that certainly shines through in the big one. I knew it flying the small one, and I can see why people love it. I can see why it has a cult following, and I see it around for a long time. It won't just end here.
I guess one thing I'd like to say is we're not done with the Timber. Yeah. We can't say what we're working on, but you know, when something works well and people know the name and they already know what to expect because of the name, and then when you take that and you say, what else could we do with it? that's how we ended up with the Timber X. And a lot of people are clamoring for more of that. You can take the timber and do what with it? You can make it a biplane, you could make it a twin, you could make it a tricycle gear, you could do all kinds of things with it. And so again, we're not done with it yet. And I know some people may say, all right guys, you're gonna beat this horse dead like you do everything. But you know, at the same time, it works well, people know it well. It's like any good brand, when you have a nameplate that people know and they appreciate, they respect, they love, there's no reason to not take that nameplate and do more with it. So yeah, we're not done with the timber yet. I think it's inspired a lot of people to try different things, and you know, that's how we ended up with the UMX version, that's how we ended up with the Timber X, and then that's how we ended up with the Hanger 9 version. It surprised a lot of people how wide its capabilities can be and how we can tweak the design just a little bit and almost completely change what it originally was into what they are today. So yeah, not done with it yet.
So I've been really happy with the way the timber turned out. You know, because I've been into STOL stuff pretty much my whole life. You know, being able to again take your passion and put it towards a model that you really are excited about is something special. And then again, the industry response to this airplane, how popular it is, how many people love it. You go to flying fields and you see people enjoying it. It's really something special when you can bring something out there that everybody can enjoy.